Welcome to the Good to Great series. Um, this is part three, and the chapter is titled "First the Who, Then the What," also known as the "Get the Right People on the Bus" concept. What does that mean? Before a bus can go on a trip, you have to first load the people, right? That's the analogy that the book uses. I prefer to use a ship. um, that if you're going to take a voyage across the ocean, the first thing you do is you assemble not just a crew, right? Not like they do in the movies where, I need six guys and you get on the ship and then they sail off. You have to assemble the best crew that you can get because remember, you're in competition with others like yourself. And so, um, and it's a little bit more than just finding good talent or finding the best people out there. You have to match the best candidate with the right job and finding candidates to fill the right job who also have the values that you need. They have the attributes that you need for your mission. Okay, and so there's a lot involved in that, but it's more than just finding a good mechanic if you're an auto shop or a good salesperson if you're an alarm company or something like that. You have to have the whole team. You have to have everyone that you need in the right place. You don't want to take a guy who's better with numbers and putting him in the field or something like that, or putting him in the shop. You have to put people where they're going to flourish. Okay, so that being said, so it's getting the right people in the right place on the bus who match your needs. Okay, so we'll start with that. Okay, so um, in studying the companies that dominated the industry, the book gives examples comparing Bank of America with Wells Fargo. These are two banks that were preparing in the late 70s, early 80s, preparing for deregulation. They knew it was coming. They just didn't know when, and they didn't know uh, how it was going to affect them. They didn't know what to expect. And so all they could do was guess and prepare. Wells Fargo and Wells Fargo CEO was Dick Cooley, and Bank of America, don't remember what his name was. Okay, so it doesn't matter. They screwed up. Um, in the interview, when they were interviewing Dick Cooley, they had asked him, "What is your plan? What are you going to do?" And the answer he gave surprised the panel. And to someone who doesn't understand leadership, somebody who doesn't understand the good to great concept, they don't understand management, it sounded like an incompetent answer. He said, "I don't know." Um, and this is what he meant. It is impossible for one guy to know every aspect of the industry, right? You may know a little bit about every aspect of your industry, but you're not going to be the expert. And in saying that didn't know, what he meant was he had to pull his team together first. He had to put together a team of his best, I don't know, loans people. He's got to put his best tax guys. He's got to put his best human resources people. He's got to put his best marketing people. Have them all together. Excuse me. Have them all together, and then that team chooses the mission, so that when deregulation came, they were able to alter their plan a little bit. Let me turn this down a little bit. Like, okay. Yeah, okay. So they were able to alter the plan a little bit in order to, because of course, you have to be flexible. And the Bank of America chose a different strategy. What they did was they went and got, I guess, their executive team was a team of experts. And they loosely chose a team. That group of experts came up with a strategy first. Wasn't necessarily the best strategy, and then they basically got a thousand helpers. This is what they call the genius with a thousand helpers concept. Doesn't always work, and it cost them $1 billion. Now, Bank of America did recover from that, but Wells Fargo kicked their ass. And the reason why was that Wells Fargo led with wisdom. They allowed the best people to make decisions in their area of expertise. You didn't have a guy at the top, like, hate to keep picking on him, but your president, Donald Trump, sitting there saying, well, I know all about security. I already know all about the military. Nobody's better than taxes than me. I know all about budget. It's impossible for one guy to know everything, to know every aspect of your business, every aspect of the government. And that's the reason why presidents have that's why they have cabinets. And you listen to your cabinet members because that's their area of expertise. But you start with choosing the right guy to lead. You don't take a heart surgeon and put him over housing. You understand? Or you don't take a caterer and put them, or events planner and put them over housing. And and this is why some people they're limited by the range of their leadership. Okay, so if you have a leader who is humble enough to yield to the right team, but of course he has to assemble that team first, then they're going to go far, because now you've got the best marketing guy, you got the best HR guy, you got the best security guy. Every aspect of your business, you've got the right people leading those departments and advising the guy that's at the top. Okay, so that being said, they also found that there's no correlation between salary and performance. So in saying that, um, there was no proof that how much they paid the CEO, how much they paid the managers, how much they paid the executive team. There was no proof that the amount that they paid them determined how successful the business was going to go. It was more important to pay the right person, not how much you pay them or how you pay them, but it was paying the right person, right? Okay, so that's an important part. The company they have to create an environment where the team is allowed to flourish. One of the parts of this concept, one of the parts of the concept is allowing your team to have a life. What does that mean? They say, I'm sorry, somebody out there whistling. Okay, so they say that a company should be rigorous and not ruthless. Okay, you want to have a disciplined environment. You want to have a you want to have rigorous standards. You want to have an environment where people expected to do their best, but you don't want people fearing for their jobs. You don't want, like I said, you don't want a ruthless environment where people are stabbing each other in the backs just to have job security. Because when you do that, you will often take good hires and they won't perform well because they're under stress. It has to be an environment where they're allowed to develop, where they're allowed to concentrate, where their home life is not affected because the job is just so stressful. That's important. So let's talk about the team itself. There are 6 core competencies. Okay, 6 principles that we want to look for in an employee. Remember, I said you don't just look for the best guy. You have to look for someone who has the characteristics that serve you best. And so these are the 6 that are identified as the most important characteristics. The first one is their core values coincides with yours. Every company should have core values. If you don't have core values, you might want to think about what's important to you, what's important to your mission, and what do you think is needed in order to get, from where you are to get to where you want to be. It has to be more than just, I want to make a lot of money. You know what I mean? What's important to you? What's important to your customers? What's important to the product, to the service that you offer? We want to hire people who share those same values that you have, right? You shouldn't have to train someone and teach someone what's important. You want to find people who already have those things. They already have those values innately. They already have, if you want people with integrity, you want someone who's a self-starter, who's an early riser, you don't get people and demand that of them. You find, excuse me, you find people who already have those values. Okay, so that's number one. Um, uh, the second thing is that you want uh, employees not to think of what they do in terms of a job, right? This isn't my job. This is my responsibility. Okay, so because if they think of themselves, they think of what they do in terms of a job. Now we're talking about job description. I'm sorry, that's not my job. But we want people who take responsibility for their part of the mission. And for example, if you're a safety engineer, for an airplane or a mechanic, your job is to make sure that airplane is safe and mechanically sound. Your responsibility is to make sure it's safe and sound, not just to go through and do the checklist the way that the book says to do it, but you want to make sure that the responsibility is more important than the job. Okay, so sometimes that means you have to go above and beyond. Sometimes it means you do a little bit extra that's not in your job description. Okay, so uh, that is number two. Number three, we want employees who will fulfill everything that they say they're going to do. If they've agreed to if they've agreed to meet a deadline, it's not good enough for them to say, "Hey, well, I tried," but they feel we want people who are so driven that nothing will stop them from fulfilling their commitment. That's what we want. We want people, because some people, hey, it's 5 o'clock, I'm off. You know what I mean? If that's the kind of guy that you have, then your company can't grow, because sometimes we do have to go above and beyond. Sometimes we have to do more than what's required of us, right? We want people who take upon themselves the mission to see their part of the job done to the best of its ability. They won't agree to doing something that they can't do if they're not sure. They don't want to commit to something that they're not sure if they can fulfill it. Okay, so that's the third part. We want people who are accountable, whose word, if they say I'm going to be done by 5 o'clock, you can leave and go do something else. And you don't have to call this person back up to say, hey, did you do it? Because you know for a fact this guy's got to do that. Okay. Number four, we want people who are self-motivated, who are self-disciplined. They're self-learners. They're um, you shouldn't have to motivate a team. You want to get people who are already, who can self-manage. You know what I mean? Someone who um, uh, is basically a master of their own little area, and they don't need to be closely watched. I'll tell you this: as soon as you have to closely manage an employee or a department, as soon as you have to go to that department and say, "Look, I need reports every day and see what you're doing," and you're can't even start your day or finish your day without going over this guy's work to make sure he did it right, you've made the wrong hiring choice. You got the wrong people. Okay, the right person will take it upon themselves. The right person, like I said, is self motivated. They're self learners. They have a high sense of self discipline. Right. Those are important, not just their job qualifications, things like that. So um, we also want number five. We also want employees who are passionate about the mission. They know what your plan is, and they are passionate about seeing that plan all the way to the end. Nothing great ever came from uh, a team that was not passionate about their job. Uh, and you can tell when you talk to someone whether they're just here for the salary, or like I said, like we said in the first one, core values. We want someone who sees the big picture like you do, and they want what you want. When that happens, you've got the right person in your company, because this is a person who is just as driven as you. You don't have to motivate them because they've already motivated. You don't have to push them because they'll push themselves. You don't have to keep repeating what the mission is because they already got it up here and they're pushing for it as well. Okay, and they will work just as hard as you. And the final one is what they call the window and mirrors. What's it? Window and mirrors factors or something like that. So what that means is someone who is willing to share the accolades when things go well. When things go well, this is the kind of guy that go to the window and point and said, "Those guys are the reasons why we did well," right? But they're also the type of people who, when things are going poorly or things have failed, they can look in the mirror and say, "This was my part. This is what I did wrong," right? They're comfortable enough. They're confident. They have enough self-esteem to admit that this is where I went wrong, and this is my fault, and this is how I learned from it, and this is how I'm going to fix it so that it doesn't happen again. And that is not something that everybody has. Some people are very quick to blame others, right? Every time something goes wrong, it's everybody else's fault but mine. And so anyway, that's the final principle, not principle, yeah, the final principle of the six uh, core competencies that an employee should have. So when you're looking for employees, we ask them the usual questions that we want for our team, but these are things that we look for. So in saying that, you don't necessarily see them in one or two interviews. Sometimes you have to spend more time with the candidate. And that is something that sets some companies apart from others. That the hiring process is done very, very robotically. You get a bunch of resumes, you look them up and down, see who went to the best schools, throw everybody else out. Look at their previous employers and see who worked for the competition, or who worked for the most notable companies, and who had the most awards, who feels good when you talk to them, that kind of stuff. We want to dig a little bit deeper, and we want to find out not just what their qualifications are, what their competencies are, but we also want to find out what their character. If you notice, these 6 items refer more, they describe more someone's character than their qualifications, and character will take you further than the same, because everybody's going to have the same thing. Everybody's going to have experts in the field working for them. All your competitors have those things. What sets some people apart is that their team has more character, more integrity. They have all the tenets of success. They have all the characteristics that you need to succeed. So anyway, that's the end of this one, and I will see you in a couple of days for the next part. All right, have a good one.